You know, we all encounter that one person who just seems to push all the wrong buttons. It could be a colleague, a friend, or even a family member. Sometimes it feels like no matter what you do, nothing changes, and you're left feeling drained or frustrated. I've been there too, wondering how things got so difficult with someone I used to get along with. But here's the thing. What if I told you there are ways to handle these situations that could make a huge difference in your peace of mind and even transform those difficult interactions? Let's talk about that today, and I'll share some strategies that have helped me personally when it comes to dealing with difficult people. First off, we need to accept one simple truth. We can't control other people's behavior, but we can control how we respond to it. I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. Think about the times you've let someone's bad attitude or rude comment ruin your whole day. Why? Because we feel like we're at the mercy of their behavior. I used to feel that way too, and let me tell you, it's exhausting. But here's where the shift happens. When you realize that their actions don't have to control your emotions, you take your power back. It's like mentally stepping off the battlefield. You can't change them, but you can absolutely control how much their behavior affects you. That's where your real strength lies. So, the first step in dealing with difficult people is mastering your own emotional response. I found that pausing before reacting can make all the difference in the world. When someone gets under your skin, and trust me, I know the feeling, it's tempting to snap back or let your frustration boil over. But taking a deep breath, counting to 5, or even just stepping away for a moment gives you a chance to respond thoughtfully instead of emotionally. It's like hitting the reset button before things get out of hand. That pause allows you to decide how you want to handle the situation, rather than just reacting on autopilot. I've saved myself from a lot of unnecessary arguments this way, and it's a skill that gets easier with practice. Here's something else I've realized. Sometimes the difficult behavior we see in others isn't really about us at all. It's easy to take things personally, but a lot of the time, the other person is dealing with their own issues, stress, insecurities, or even past experiences that shape how they act. For example, I once had a coworker who was always critical and short with me, and for a long time, I thought it was because they just didn't like me. But over time, I found out they were dealing with some heavy personal stuff. Understanding that helped me approach them with a bit more compassion, and it actually improved our relationship. Now, this doesn't mean excusing bad behavior, but having empathy helps you see the bigger picture. When you realize it's not always about you, it's easier to stay calm and not let their negativity affect your day. Boundaries, we've all heard the term, but how often do we actually use them? Setting boundaries is a game changer when it comes to dealing with difficult people. I used to think that if I was nice, I had to just accept whatever came my way, but that's not true. Boundaries are about protecting your peace, and they don't make you selfish or rude. They make you healthy. Think about it like this. Boundaries are like invisible lines that remind people how they can treat you. It could be something as simple as saying, "I'm not comfortable with that," or "Let's revisit this later when we're both calmer." I had to learn the hard way that people will treat you how you allow them to, so setting those limits can prevent small problems from turning into big conflicts. And trust me, the more you practice, the easier it becomes. Speaking of boundaries, let's talk about the power of saying no. If you're anything like me, you probably hate the idea of letting someone down or causing conflict. I used to say yes to things I didn't want to do just to keep the peace. But every time I did, I was betraying myself. The thing about difficult people is that they often push your limits. And if you're always saying yes to things that feel wrong or uncomfortable, you're giving them more control over your life than you realize. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a person who values your own time and energy. It's not about rejecting someone outright. It's about prioritizing what matters to you. Learning to say no was a game changer for me, and the sense of freedom and control it gave me was priceless. Now let's talk about communication. It's easy to think we're being clear, but sometimes the way we say things can actually make things worse. When dealing with difficult people, it's essential to communicate in a way that doesn't escalate the situation. One trick I've learned is using I statements instead of you statements. For example, saying, "I feel frustrated when you do this," is so much better than "you always make me mad." The first approach is less accusatory and opens the door for conversation, while the second just puts people on the defensive. Trust me, I've made the mistake of blaming someone outright before, and it never led anywhere productive. Clear, calm communication goes a long way in resolving conflicts before they get out of hand. Another piece of advice that's been really helpful to me is picking your battles. Not everything needs to be addressed, and not every situation is worth your time and energy. This was a tough lesson for me because I used to think that if something bothered me, I had to deal with it right then and there. But I've learned that sometimes letting the little things slide is actually better for your overall peace of mind. Ask yourself, is this really a big deal, or can I let it go? I've found that not every annoyance needs to be confronted, and sometimes the best way to deal with difficult people is by not engaging in every single conflict. It's a form of self-care to choose your battles wisely, and in the long run, it keeps you more centered and focused on what truly matters. That said, there are times when confrontation is necessary, but even then, it can be done respectfully. If you need to address an issue, staying calm and sticking to the facts is key. Avoid bringing up past issues or making it personal. Instead, focus on the current behavior and how it's impacting you. For example, rather than saying, "You're always so rude," try something like, "When you cut me off during meetings, it makes it hard for me to share my ideas." This way, you're addressing the behavior without attacking the person. I found that keeping my emotions in check and focusing on the specific issue at hand makes it more likely that the other person will listen without getting defensive. Finally, if someone is consistently toxic and you've tried everything, it's important to evaluate how much space they're taking up in your life. It's not easy, but sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is limit your exposure to someone who is consistently negative or harmful. This might mean spending less time with them, avoiding certain topics, or in extreme cases, cutting ties altogether. I've had to make tough decisions about relationships that were doing more harm than good, and while it was difficult at the time, I don't regret it. Your mental health and peace of mind are worth protecting, and sometimes that means making hard choices. At the end of the day, you are responsible for your own well-being. Dealing with difficult people isn't about changing them. It's about finding ways to manage the situation without letting it derail your life. Trust me, you deserve to feel respected and at peace in your relationships. So the next time you encounter someone who tests your patience, try out some of these strategies. They've worked for me, and I believe they can help you too. And before you go, if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.